The wife couldn't understand why her husband, who had been in a vegetative state for 3 years, woke up and immediately asked for a divorce. Jessica had spent every day by Marcus's bedside, hiring expensive nurses and spending a fortune equivalent to 5 luxury cars on his care. But only Marcus knew how Jessica really cared for him during those 3 years. Marcus Harrison has been in a coma for 3 years now, and there has been no sign of recovery. Even the Harrison family is advising Miss Chen to give up, but Jessica remains as devoted as ever. Miss Chen must truly love Marcus deeply. And they've known each other since childhood. Marcus is so fortunate, receiving such obvious love from Miss Chen since they were young. I heard that Miss Chen has been planning a wedding, wanting to marry Marcus and make their relationship official. Marcus will surely be so touched when he wakes up, right? The nurses' voices gradually faded as they continued chatting outside the ward. However, on the hospital bed, my tears soaked the pillowcase. I said to the system, "I'm not waking up, let me return to the mission world." The system replied, "Host, are you out of your mind? You've worked so hard, faced countless dangers, and now you're about to wake up and reunite with Jessica." Before it could finish, the system's usual mechanical tone was overtaken by an even greater shock. It stared in disbelief at the naked man and woman on the sofa in the hospital room. It exclaimed, "Host, isn't that your fiancé?" I said, "Yes." I recognized her voice and scent. 6 years ago, the night before our wedding, Jessica had suffered a car accident and fell into a coma. I took care of her for 3 whole years. Her injuries were too severe, and she grew weaker by the day. I begged the heavens for her to be spared. In the final moments of her life, the system appeared. It told me that if I earned enough points, I could save her, but I couldn't wait. To save Jessica, I didn't hesitate to accrue points on credit. When Jessica woke up, I became the one in a coma. For these 3 years, in order to repay the massive debt and reunite with her in the present, I threw myself into one dangerous mission after another, disregarding my life. I endured unimaginable torment, holding on only because of my love for her. But on the day I was finally returning with joy, the fiancé I had been thinking of day and night was entwined in another man's arms at my bedside. Jessica, who had been lost in physical pleasure, seemed to sense something. Shuddering, her eyes, once blurry with lust, regained their cold indifference. Without a trace of hesitation, she pushed the man off her and stood up to gather her scattered clothes. Tyler sat on the sofa, fully exposed, his eyes filled with sorrow. He said, "Jessica, do we have to keep this a secret forever?" Jessica put on her clothes slowly, smoothing out the wrinkles in her dress, as if she hadn't just been coiling around Tyler like a serpent on the sofa. Jessica said, "As long as you're with me, you'll always be my secret lover. If you're not happy, you can end it any time. My husband's place belongs to Marcus." Tyler's eyes were filled with unshed tears as he pitifully said, "I don't dare ask to be your husband, but as long as I can occupy a small corner of your heart, I'll be content." Jessica glanced at his well-built muscles, her expression dark, then her cold tone softened with a hint of pity. She said, "We've been together for 3 years. As long as you're good to me, I won't treat you poorly. Once I've given Marcus the heir to the family, I can have a child with you." The system said, "Host, she started keeping a lover right after you left, and it's your brother she's cheating with." I replied, "Jessica isn't my fiancé, and Tyler isn't my brother." In the sea of my consciousness, I felt a despair so deep I could hardly bear it. I said to the system, "Take me away, I don't want to see them anymore." The system, which usually would have been eager for me to spend my life earning points for the main god, now couldn't bear it. It said, "Host, you don't have to leave the world entirely. You can move far away from them and start a new life somewhere no one knows you." I said, "Jessica once loved me with her life, but in the end, she fell for Tyler. Soon she will begin to despise me, just like my parents and sister did. No one in this world will ever welcome me. Let me go. My name is Marcus Harrison, and I've been the sacrificial lamb of the Harrison family for 23 years. When I was 5 years old, a car accident changed everything. Tyler's father, who worked as our family driver, died in that crash while allegedly saving my life. From that moment on, the Harrison family brought Tyler into our home, and I became nothing more than a walking blood bank and guilt offering. Tyler was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder that required regular transfusions. The doctors said his condition was fragile, that he needed constant care and attention. My parents, Robert and Linda Harrison, convinced themselves that we owed Tyler everything because his father had died for me. They gave him my bedroom, my toys, my place at the dinner table, and eventually, my entire future. I was supposed to attend Harvard, my grades were perfect, my test scores impeccable, but when Tyler got accepted to a small college in California, my parents insisted I give up my Ivy League dreams to attend a lesser university nearby. Tyler needs you close, my mother would say. You owe him this much. For 20 years, I donated blood to Tyler monthly, sometimes more when he claimed to be having episodes. I watched my own health deteriorate while he grew stronger. I gave up sports, gave up activities that might risk injury, gave up living a normal life because I might damage the blood that Tyler needed to survive. My sister Emma, 3 years younger than me, learned early that loving Tyler brought praise while defending me, brought lectures about selfishness and ingratitude. She stopped standing up for me by the time she turned 12, and by 16, she looked at me with the same disappointment our parents did. "Why can't you be more like Tyler?" became the family motto. Tyler was gentle, Tyler was grateful, Tyler never complained about his circumstances. Meanwhile, I was selfish, ungrateful, and bitter about my sacrifices. But through it all, there was Jessica Chen. I met Jessica when we were both 18, during my first semester at the mediocre college I attended for Tyler's sake. She was studying art history, a beautiful girl with long black hair and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. She'd grown up in an orphanage until the wealthy Chen family adopted her at age 16, seeing potential in her intelligence and grace. Jessica was different from everyone else in my life. She saw me, really saw me, not as Tyler's blood donor or the Harrison family disappointment, but as Marcus. She would trace the needle marks on my arms and ask me why I did it. When I explained about Tyler and the debt our family owed, she would hold me close and whisper that I was worth so much more than they made me believe. "You have the kindest heart," she would tell me, "but kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction." We fell in love slowly, then all at once. Jessica became my refuge, the one person in the world who put me first. She would wait for me after my monthly blood donations, bringing soup and vitamins to help me recover. She celebrated my small victories and mourned my defeats as if they were her own. When Jessica graduated, the Chen family business was struggling. Her adoptive parents had taken huge financial risks that didn't pay off, and they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Jessica threw herself into saving the company, working 18-hour days, skipping meals, and slowly burning herself out. I proposed to her on her 23rd birthday, with a ring I'd saved for 2 years to buy. She said yes with tears in her eyes, and we began planning our wedding. But then came Jessica's car accident. The night before our wedding, Jessica was driving home from a final meeting with our wedding planner when a drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into her car. She was rushed to the hospital with severe brain trauma and fell into a deep coma. The doctors said her chances of recovery were slim. The Chen family was devastated and I was destroyed. I moved into the hospital, sleeping in the chair beside her bed, talking to her unconscious form for hours, believing she could hear me. For 3 years, I cared for her. I hired the best nurses, the most expensive specialists, experimental treatments that cost more than most people's houses. I depleted my trust fund, took loans, and watched the Chen family's gratitude slowly turn to pity and then to subtle suggestions that maybe it was time to let go. But I never gave up. I couldn't. Jessica was the only good thing in my life, the only person who had ever truly loved me. That's when the system appeared. It materialized in my mind during my darkest moment, when Jessica's doctors were suggesting we consider removing life support. A mechanical voice offered me hope in exchange for service. Complete missions across alternate realities, it said. Earn points to change fate itself, save the woman you love. I didn't hesitate. I signed the contract, borrowed points against future earnings, and used them immediately to stab Elise Jessica's condition. The very next day, she opened her eyes. But the debt was massive. To pay it back and return to this reality permanently, I had to complete increasingly dangerous missions in other worlds. I became a warrior, a spy, a hero, dying and being reborn countless times, all for the chance to come home to Jessica. 3 years I spent in those alternate realities, believing Jessica was waiting for me, faithful and true, 3 years of hell, sustained only by the memory of her love and the promise of our reunion. I should have known that 3 years was too long to expect anyone to wait. I should have realized that the Harrison family would never let me be happy, even in my absence. But I believed in love. I believed in Jessica. That was my greatest mistake. With a heart full of despair, the heart monitor let out a loud, piercing alarm. With a beep, Jessica shouted, "Marcus!" Jessica crawled to my bedside, and when she saw my lifeless face, her heart sank. She frantically pressed the call button and screamed at the door, "Help, someone, please." I said to the system, "Jessica and the Harrison family will never let me go, only death can free me from them." My consciousness was slipping into oblivion. The system urgently said, "Host, you can withdraw your wish to save Jessica. The points you've earned are enough to change your body." I regained a brief moment of clarity. It said, "Host, if you change your identity, Jessica and the Harrison family will no longer have anything to do with you. You will have a family that truly loves you. Don't be afraid, host." The light in the resuscitation room did not go out for a long time. Jessica clutched several critical illness notices, slumped on the cold corridor floor all night, her entire being lost as if suddenly thrown into an abyss. When she heard that not only had I survived, but miraculously woke up, Jessica finally burst into tears of joy. She cried all the way as she followed the stretcher back to the ward, holding on to the precious treasure she had almost lost. Her head buried deep in my shoulder, tears mixed with warm breaths fell on my skin. She said, "Marcus, I almost thought I was going to lose you. Do you know you've been asleep for 3 years? I searched for doctors all over the world, but no one could figure out why you were in a coma." Jessica held me for a while, then let go to check on me again, and tightly embraced me once more, over and over again, afraid that I might vanish. She constantly expressed her love for me. In those 3,000 small worlds, I repeatedly imagined our reunion. Each time, she would hold me tightly, just like now. I was filled with joy, believing I was about to find happiness. I never imagined I would face such a bloody betrayal. This embrace, which once made me feel infinite affection, now felt like a cold, slippery snake tightening around me, repulsive and suffocating. She even smelled of Tyler's cigarette smoke, a scent that brought back the filthy words exchanged between the two of them last night. Dirty, too dirty. I couldn't help but push her away, turning to the side to vomit. Jessica was frightened, rushing to fetch tea and water, carefully wiping the corner of my mouth, occasionally glancing at me with hesitation as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Finally, she couldn't resist and asked tentatively, "Did you hear anything last night?" I raised my head and caught the hint of guilt and panic in her eyes. Does she feel fear too? Then why did she choose to seek excitement right by my bedside? Was she sure I wouldn't wake up, or did she believe I would never leave? The system spoke, "Host, I found it. The Blackwell Group's young master's soul is incomplete, and in half a month, he will reincarnate. I've arranged it with the Heavenly Tao, and once David dies, you can borrow his body. The Blackwell Group is much stronger than the Harrison family." Half a month. In just half a month, I will change identities. I stared directly at the woman in front of me, who had already recovered her health. Gone was the emaciated, lifeless figure from 3 years ago. I asked the system, "What will happen to her if I retract my wish?" The system replied, "She'll return to being a vegetable." I paused for a moment. The system curiously asked, "Host, are you regretting it?" I replied, "I'm just sighing. I bound myself to this system and traveled to another world to cure her and live by her side. Now I'm taking back the points I owe her, and she will once again become a vegetable, just dying. Tea like 3 years ago, quietly waiting for death." How did we two people who once loved each other so deeply end up like this? Not long after the door closed, my parents hurriedly arrived. Seeing that I was awake, my father breathed a sigh of relief. He said, "You're awake. Good, good." My heart stirred slightly as I remembered the love my father had shown me before I was 5. I was the first child born into a family full of love and expectations, but then I heard my father muttering, "Tyler is 28 years old now. Dragging it on isn't a solution." Tyler. So it's him again. I forced a bitter smile. What else did they want me to do for Tyler? My parents and sister had given way to him, and I had been a blood bank for 20 years. Wasn't that enough? When my mother saw me looking down and silent, she scolded me in dissatisfaction. "Don't you know how to greet your parents? We came running here as soon as we heard you woke up. and you don't even know how to be grateful. After lying in bed for years, you still haven't changed that rebellious nature. I no longer expected any so-called motherly love, but my heart still ached. I suppressed the surging emotions and asked, "Tell me, what do you want me to do?" Without considering whether I, just having woken up, could bear it, my mother got straight to the point. "Marcus, I'm not afraid to tell you. Tyler and Jessica are together now. You've been lying in bed for years, nearly dead, and Jessica didn't dare go public with it. Now that you're awake, let them be together." These words struck me like a hammer, shattering my heart into pieces. So they all knew about Tyler and Jessica. My voice was hoarse and sharp as if blood was spilling from my words. I've been betrayed, I've been hurt, and yet now it's my fault for delaying them. My mother said, "You were in a coma for 3 years, shouldn't they be allowed to move on after all that time?" She looked at me with a disapproving gaze, her eyes full of disappointment. She said, "Tyler isn't like you. He's not a Harrison family child, he's not good enough for Jessica, but after losing her, what should he do? He's already wasted so much of his youth on her. Marcus, you can't be so selfish." In the end, my mother dropped a final bombshell. "This is something you owe to Tyler." I lifted my gaze to look at my so-called parents. I asked, "If I die, will I no longer owe him anything?" My mother replied, "Good, so you're threatening to die to force us, huh?" My father, enraged, started to berate me. "It's been 3 years, do you think Jessica still likes you? Marrying you was out of goodwill. How long are you going to try to extort favors from others? Not a single thing you've done in your life has been worry-free. Why can't you learn a little from Tyler and be as filial and sensible as he is?" Unfilial son. I was overwhelmed with sorrow and asked, "What do you want me to do to help them?" Finally, my mother smiled and said, "Your father and I have already found the perfect match for you. The young lady from the Mitchell family in the city. She's willing to marry you. After a few days, you can tell Jessica that you're the one who changed your mind, and that will make it easier for her to let go and see Tyler's good qualities." The system spoke, "Host, don't listen to them. The Mitchell family indeed has tremendous power, but Miss Mitchell is mentally unstable. She has killed or crippled 2 of her previous fiancés. The Harrison family is envious of the Mitchell family's projects worth billions in the city center and has been trying to arrange a business marriage. I had taken care of Jessica for 3 years and then slept for another 3, so I naturally had no idea about the secrets of the Mitchell family. With the power of the Harrison family, I didn't believe my parents didn't know about it. This was my wonderful father and mother. I said to the system, "I promise you, I'll take back my wish for Jessica's recovery. In half a month, I'll borrow another body to reincarnate. The Blackwell family is far stronger than the Harrison family, and I'll no longer let these people control me." The system responded, "Understood, host." I agreed to my parents' proposal. I didn't want to face their endless scolding during the last 15 days. After this body dies, the engagement with Jessica would naturally be cancelled. On the day I was discharged, I met my long-lost sister Emma. Seeing her brother who had just recovered from a long illness, there seemed to be nothing but wariness in her eyes. The joy I had felt earlier vanished. Was she afraid that I would make Tyler think too much? On the way home, Emma, with a tense expression, coldly lectured me. "Marcus, Tyler lost his father at a young age and has been living under someone else's roof. Don't be fooled by how strong he seems on the outside. Inside, he's actually very fragile. He should have had a happy family. The driver uncle spirit must not want to see his son suffer." I muttered to myself, "Suffer?" Tyler, who had always been physically weak, received all the attention and love from the Harrison family. My original bedroom, study, and art room were all taken by Tyler. From elementary school to university, teachers and classmates only saw me as a bookkeeper and companion reader who was forced to care for Tyler. I could have gone to Harvard or Yale. At the very least, I could have attended a university closer to home, but to be a blood donor, I could only attend a second-tier university near Tyler's school. Was that suffering? I still remember the first time I was forced to give Tyler a blood transfusion. It hurt so much that I cried, and Emma, following me, cried as well and gave me the candy she had secretly hidden. She said, "Brother, don't cry, Emma is here." That candy should have been sweet, but now when I think of it, it feels so bitter. I forced myself not to let the tears fall, but still, they betrayed me and rolled down my cheeks one by one. I could only lean back in my seat, turning my head to look out the car window. My dear sister Emma's cold voice came from beside me. She said, "Don't bully Tyler." When we arrived at the Harrison family home, Tyler had just come out of the kitchen, wearing a soft and harmless smile. He said, "Marcus, to celebrate your discharge from the hospital, I made some dishes. Marcus, please try them." I looked at the dining table, which was piled with seafood, fish, shrimp, crab, scallops, all kinds of seafood. My parents looked on with pride and approval, not seeing any problem with the dishes. Tyler asked, "Aren't you going to eat, Marcus?" He sighed and said, "It seems Marcus still can't accept me. Is there something wrong with me, Marcus?" My father suddenly slammed his chopsticks onto the table and angrily scolded, "No matter how much you resent Tyler, he's a son of the Harrison family. He's your brother. You'll eat, and that's that." My mother shook her head in disappointment and said, "Marcus, you're too willful." Emma frowned even more tightly and said, "Tyler has been busy all day. Can't you at least take one bite to show some courtesy? Is that so hard?" "Yeah, is it really so hard?" When I was 3, I was hospitalized and nearly died from a seafood allergy. They had forgotten all about it. I said, "I'm not eating." "Marcus!" My father jumped up in fury. Before his angry words could spill out, I calmly said, "I'm allergic to seafood. I can't eat this." My father froze as if he finally remembered the terrifying scene from years ago. Tyler said, "I'm sorry, Marcus, I didn't know." He was so upset that tears streamed down his face as though he had been greatly wronged. He sobbed, "Marcus, don't be mad at me." The guilt on my father's face evaporated, and he coldly scolded, "Tyler didn't do it on purpose. Why bring it up and embarrass him?" A wave of helplessness washed over me. My body, weakened by muscle atrophy, wavered slightly. I said, "Forget it, I'm tired." I struggled to walk toward my room. I opened the door to find the guest room empty, with its decor changed into a piano room. My mother said, "Marcus, you've been lying in the hospital for years, and this room has been empty all this time. Since Tyler wants to learn the piano, we let him use it." My mother followed me in, looking slightly embarrassed. She asked, "You don't mind, do you?" I quietly asked, "Now that I'm awake, shouldn't this room be returned to me?" My mother, enraged, snapped, "There are other rooms in the house. Look at Tyler, he never fought with you for anything." I sighed, "He doesn't need to fight, he has everything without doing anything." My mother's expression stiffened, unable to hide her discomfort. Emma, who had followed, said in a low voice, "Marcus, what are you making a fuss about now? Are you trying to make things difficult for us, or are you intentionally targeting Tyler?" I stared at Emma for a long time. For a moment, I couldn't even recognize the little sister who used to follow me around like a shadow. After 3 years of deep slumber, the place I once held in her heart had already been taken by Tyler. Seeing the sadness in my eyes, Emma softened her tone. She said, "Brother, you're being too biased against Tyler. He means you no harm. I hope you two can get along well. Also, since you woke up so suddenly, we'll prepare another room for you. Stop causing trouble." I nodded silently, not rebutting. What was the point of arguing? They had never thought of letting me win. In the end, I moved into the small room at the end of the attic corridor, where my old personal belongings were carelessly stacked in a corner. The crystal ball had been broken for who knows how long, the liquid inside long dried up, the small castle model had rolled off and was crushed. It was a gift from my sister. I still remembered when she was only 3, she told me that one day we would build a big castle and live together. I picked up the broken crystal ball, turned on the switch, but no music played. I should have realized this earlier. 23 years ago, this home was no longer mine. In the corner were many things I had cherished. Symbols of the family bonds and love I had once clung to. They had all moved on while I remained stuck in the past. It was time to let go. I found a burlap sack and started putting those items inside, dragging them to the yard. I brought over a metal barrel, put in some of the more flammable items, and set it on fire. The smell of burning reached my father, who rushed out, jumping up and down in fury. He yelled, "It's just a change of room and you're setting a fire. You're deliberately humiliating the Harrison family." My mother couldn't believe it. "Marcus, how did you turn into this?" I ignored them, mechanically continuing to throw things into the barrel. Emma came up and grabbed my hand, saying, "Marcus, do you really want to make a scene like this?" Just then, Jessica arrived with a car full of gifts to discuss the marriage proposal. As soon as Jessica got out of the car, she saw the metal barrel burning fiercely. Her gaze finally landed on the plush toy I was holding, and she said, stunned, Marcus, this is the gift I gave you. You used to sleep with it. You're going to burn it. I stared blankly at the dirty rabbit plush. I wasn't sure if I was talking about the toy or her. I said, "It's dirty." The plush toy had been discarded for too long, its once snow-white body now stained with large patches of dirt. Even its rabbit ears had bite marks from rats. Jessica took the stuffed rabbit, furrowing her brow. What happened to this? I had carelessly thrown all the things I had once carefully kept into the metal barrel. The ferocious flames devoured everything from the past. I asked the same question Jessica had just asked. I said, "Yeah, how did it end up like this?" Jessica didn't see the photos or letters, but she did catch a glimpse of the corner of the uniform and assumed I was really burning those old things. She casually threw the stuffed rabbit into the fire as well. She said, "If you're burning it, then just burn it. I'll buy you a new one." Before the toy could burn completely, Jessica eagerly dragged me to look at the list of dowry items. Luxurious houses, cars, jewelry, antiques, and calligraphy. She had added a fortune's worth of dowry over the past 3 years. Jessica handed the list to me, her voice light and bright. "Marcus, all these dowries are yours to keep. When we get married, everything of the Chen family will be yours. If it weren't for needing to pick an auspicious date, I'd want to marry you today." Jessica's eyes sparkled with excitement. For a moment, I saw the girl from when she was 18, her cheeks flushed, stammering as she confessed her love to me. If I hadn't overheard her and Tyler's intimate conversation, I might have believed that she truly loved me. "Jessica, how did you end up cheating? We were so close to happiness." Jessica's chest rose and fell dramatically, her eyes glowing with determination. "Marcus, let's set our wedding date for the 28th of this month, all right?" I nodded. "All right." The 28th would be the day of our wedding and my death. Jessica, get ready to taste the bitterness of hope turning into despair. That night, I went downstairs to get some water, and as I passed by the second-floor landing, I saw Tyler standing on the small balcony in the distance. I pretended not to see him. Tyler, however, walked up to me, a mocking smirk on his handsome face. He said, "Marcus, what's wrong? Can't sleep because the dowry list ended up in my hands. Your father, mother, sister, and Jessica. They should be the ones who love you most, but look who still cares about you now. Marcus, you're such a failure." I looked at his bloodshot eyes and replied, "Isn't it you who can't sleep? Is it because Jessica wants to marry someone else and not you?" "Marcus." Tyler's face contorted with rage at being struck where it hurt. I weakly gripped the handrail, but every word I spoke hit hard. I said, "Taking advantage of a sick adopted brother, crawling into your future sister-in-law's bed, debasing yourself and disregarding morals. You should be the one who feels ashamed." Tyler gritted his teeth, growling, "What's there to be proud of? So what if you're the biological child of the Harrison family? They're all on my side, trying to make you break up with Jessica." Suddenly, he gave a cruel smile, his eyes gleaming with a sense of triumph. He said, "The night before you woke up, Jessica begged me for it 3 times right by your sickbed. My body drove her wild with desire." Jessica's betrayal didn't spark any anger or sadness in me. I stared at him coldly, my eyes as calm as still water. I said, "Tyler, you're pathetic." Not able to provoke me, Tyler finally snapped. He shouted, "Marcus, how dare you still act so high and mighty? Don't forget, you owe me your life. You shouldn't have woken up." The demonic malice fueled an impulse that had been suppressed in my heart for years, and it broke free. Tyler suddenly shoved me with all his strength. He yelled, "Die," the moment I heard his words. I sensed something was wrong. As my body lost its balance, I grabbed onto Tyler, and we both tumbled down the long spiral staircase. Blood poured from Tyler's forehead and my own mouth. The sight of red filled my vision, and I saw the pain twisting Tyler's face. So he can feel pain too. Emma was the first to hear the noise and rushed downstairs. When she saw the 2 of us collapsed in the pool of blood, she instinctively ran to Tyler. Tyler, who had lived a life of luxury, was already unconscious from the pain. Emma quickly glanced at me, still conscious, and ordered the bodyguards to carry Tyler to the car. She said, "Marcus, Tyler's head was injured. His condition is critical. I have to take him to the hospital." Without another word, she turned and walked out with hurried steps. The system notified me, "Host, you have multiple fractures and internal injuries. Even without changing your identity, you won't survive much longer." I barely managed a faint smile, murmuring before I lost consciousness, "No wonder it hurt so much." It was the butler who eventually rushed me to the hospital for emergency treatment. Less than a day after being discharged, I was back in the operating room. When I woke up, Jessica was sitting beside my bed, her eyes red, clutching my hand. She said, "Marcus, thank goodness you're awake. I thought you might never wake up. Please don't leave me, Marcus." The anesthesia had worn off, and every slight movement of my broken body sent waves of intense pain. I still managed to pull my hand out of hers. "Just wait a little longer, it'll all be over soon." Suddenly, the door slammed open with a loud bang. My father stormed in, cursing. "Marcus, how could you push your brother down the stairs? How could I have a son with such a venomous heart?" Behind him, my mother was crying, her voice thick with sorrow. "Marcus, he really disappointed me." I looked at my parents, who were in such an emotional state, and spoke in a tone so calm it was almost chilling. I said, "It was Tyler who pushed me first." My father's face darkened with rage. "You're still lying. Why would Tyler push you? You're the one who's narrow-minded and has been against him since childhood." I knew this would happen. I picked up my phone from beside me. I said, "Then call the police. The police will restore the truth based on the evidence at the scene." My father, in a fit of rage, grabbed my phone and smashed it to pieces. He shouted, "Family against family. Are you trying to make the whole world laugh at the Harrison family?" I stared at my so-called father with unblinking eyes. I said, "I just want my innocence." Just as my father was about to try and question me about that night, the door swung open again with a loud crash, slamming into the wall. Emma rushed in with 2 doctors. Without saying a word, she grabbed my hand and urgently said, "Get his blood drawn right away." I asked, "You want me to give blood to Tyler?" I looked at Emma's face, which seemed strangely unfamiliar now. I said, "Emma, aren't you going to ask about my condition?" Emma's eyes were filled with impatience and exhaustion. She said, "Marcus, I can ignore the fact that you pushed Tyler down the stairs, but Tyler will die without your blood. You have to save him first." Jessica, upon hearing that her lover's life was in danger, hesitated for a moment. The words, "Marcus needs rest," she was about to say, caught in her throat. She looked at me, her brow furrowed with concern. She said, "Marcus, he's your brother." I asked Jessica, "Do you want me to donate blood to Tyler too?" For the first time, Jessica saw such a look in my eyes, one that seemed filled with endless despair and desolation. A sense of unease stirred in her heart. Soon, she recalled the past 3 years, the twisted and secretive moments she shared with Tyler. Her dark eyes began to fill with desire. To her, I was an untouchable god, while Tyler was, as a lover who could fulfill all of her desires. Of course, a lover could never compare to a god. But she didn't want to lose either. This wasn't a matter of choosing one or the other. She was just taking some blood. It would be fine. She said, "Anyway, you're brothers, there are doctors here, you won't be harmed, I'll make sure you're taken care of. I'll have the butler prepare some nourishing soup to replenish your energy and blood." With that, Jessica picked up her phone and walked out of the room. I should have been angry, but my body wouldn't allow me to feel that way. It was as if all the energy had been drained from me, and I lay in bed, staring blankly at her retreating figure. After Jessica left, my mother no longer hesitated. She said, "Don't you feel fine now? Why not donate some blood to Tyler? He's injured his head, his health has always been fragile. I think you're just stalling to let Tyler die." Emma frowned. "It's just a little blood." Before I could react, she gave a sharp order to the doctor, "Hurry up and draw the blood." The doctor wiped the sweat from his brow, saying, Drawing blood from the patient might not be appropriate. The hospital has already arranged for blood from the city hospital. We can wait another half hour." Emma snapped, "No, what if something happens to Tyler in the meantime?" My mother, filled with anxiety, grew impatient, and seeing there was no way to reason with me, swiftly stepped forward. She grabbed my hand roughly and shoved the needle into my vein. The cold touch sent a tremor through my soul. Life seemed to slip away with the blood. A wave of dizziness hit me, and it felt like I was drifting back to my happiest childhood moments, smelling a familiar scent, wanting to catch a glimpse of my mother's face. But my vision blurred to the point where I couldn't see clearly. Instinctively, I whispered, "Mom, Mom, it hurts so much." The sound of my voice, soft like a kitten's, made her heart stop for a beat, but quickly, she remembered the adopted son in the other room whose life hung in the balance. She said, Marcus, stop being willful. My mother turned her back on me, refusing to look at me. She muttered, if it weren't for you, Tyler wouldn't be in this predicament. You need to learn your lesson. The doctor hastily reminded, 200 milliliters have been drawn. My father urged, keep going. My mother hesitated for a moment, then nodded, agreeing, draw more, just to be safe. Emma's mind was filled with images of Tyler bleeding and unconscious. She had no time to spare for me, constantly glancing toward the door, murmuring, Tyler, please don't have any accidents. The system suddenly announced, warning, host's body is not able to sustain the transition to a new identity after death. The sharp beeping of the alert rang out. It was as though my senses were returning for a brief moment, and I could hear their words clearly. I said to the system, just take my points, I don't care, take me away. The system remained silent for a long time. It wasn't meant to handle soul transfers, but in the end, it made an exception for me. The mechanical voice sounded once more, soul will depart shortly. As I fell into unconsciousness, the panicked doctor hurriedly intervened, 400 milliliters, we can't take any more, even a healthy person couldn't handle this much at once. My father replied, this is a matter of life and death, what are you dragging your feet for? We already took 600 milliliters before, and nothing happened. Before my father could continue scolding, my mother stopped him. She glanced at her son lying on the bed, his face pale and eyes closed, and something stirred in her chest. She said, forget it, just take this blood to save Tyler. Following her gaze, my father finally noticed my bloodless face. With a cold snort, he muttered, unfilial son, you've brought this upon yourself. At this moment, Emma stood up and said, we've wasted too much time, let's go now, if there's not enough blood, we'll come back for more. The doctor, who was about to check my condition, was pulled away by Emma. Jessica brushed past them. She remembered the dull, lifeless look in my eyes, and an increasing sense of panic gripped her. She was about to come forward to comfort me, but my father, who had intended to push for a union between Jessica and Tyler, called out to her, Jessica, come with us. Jessica glanced at the bed. My head turned slowly to the side, the sunlight filtering through my yellowed hair, revealing pale, translucent skin beneath. I looked so weak, so colorless, it seemed like I might vanish in the next moment. A tightness gripped Jessica's chest, and she stepped forward. My mother, who was about to leave the room, turned around when she noticed Jessica had not followed. She said, let Marcus rest. Jessica, thinking of her lover's uncertain fate, and the 3 years she had spent with Tyler, unconditionally accompanying him without name or recognition, felt a pang of guilt. She turned on her heel. Overcome with inexplicable unease, she didn't dare face me directly. She said, Marcus, I'll go check on your brother. In the blink of an eye, the room fell silent. I spoke to the system, they didn't even realize I'm dead. My soul drifted in the air, gazing forlornly at the lonely body below. The system responded, host, it's not their lack of love for you that hurts, what truly wounds you is the unrealistic hopes and expectations you still hold. The system guided my soul to the operating room door, where the Harrison family and Jessica's faces were filled with true concern and urgency. No one paid any attention to the severely injured me, who had lost hundreds of milliliters of blood. The system said, host, let go of your hopes. I turned my gaze away and stared directly at the door, seeing inside where Tyler, who should have been on the brink of death, was now flushed with color, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. I couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. If only the Harrison family and Jessica had used a little bit of their minds, they could have easily seen through Tyler's clumsy lie. But sadly, when you care, you become blind. Goodbye Mom, Dad, Emma, goodbye Jessica. I took one last look at my former parents, sister, and lover. In the future, I would become my own closest and dearest, loving myself 1,000 times over. Farewell. It was the system that was truly infuriated by the scene inside the operating room. It said, on the day the host woke up, Emma installed surveillance cameras on the corridors and staircases of every floor of the Harrison house. The system can hack into major social platforms and expose the footage. Emma had probably installed the cameras because she feared I would harm Tyler, but in the end, it had captured Tyler's crimes. I found it all absurd. Sleepiness washed over me, and though I still had time before I could borrow someone else's body, my remaining points were insufficient to keep my soul clear. I slowly fell into dormancy. Before I fell asleep, I gazed at the system that had accompanied me through countless lives, feeling a bittersweet gratitude. I said, "Thank you, system." In the end, the system sought justice for me. I suppose I wasn't that miserable after all. The moment Marcus fell into complete slumber, Jessica seemed to sense something, as though something crucial had been violently ripped from her life. She frantically looked into the emptiness. She cried out, "Don't go." Emma, with a complicated expression, tried to reassure her, "Tyler will be fine." Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came out. Not long after, Jessica and the Harrison family's phones began ringing incessantly. They soon discovered that the Harrison family's surveillance footage had leaked and was trending on social media. Confused, Jessica opened the video sent by her mother. Tyler's voice came through clearly. He said, "Marcus, what's the matter? The dowry list ended up in my hands, and now you can't sleep." Jessica murmured, "Dowry." Her tone shifted from calm to cold. The Harrison family didn't have time to address her. They were staring at the screen in shock. In the dim footage, Tyler's eyes, gleaming with malice, were especially unsettling. My mother took a step back and said, "Is this Tyler?" The video kept playing. Tyler spoke again. "The night before you woke up, Jessica clung to me by the bedside and had me 3 times. My body made her lose her mind." Jessica screamed, "Tyler!" She no longer cared to ask why her dowry had ended up in Tyler's hands, but an overwhelming sense of terror almost consumed her. "Tyler, how dare he?" Emma had long known about the affair between Tyler and Jessica, but hearing him say it so plainly still made her heart ache. However, Jessica's reaction chilled her even more. Emma said, "Sister Jessica, Tyler likes you so much. If it weren't for you." At that moment, the screen showed Tyler violently shoving Marcus. He cursed, "Die." Emma's eyes widened as she saw Marcus, in the instant of falling, drag Tyler down the stairs with him. Her face turned pale, and she collapsed onto a bench in the hospital corridor. How could Tyler do this to her brother? She had personally installed the surveillance cameras, but she hadn't watched the footage, assuming it was Marcus who pushed Tyler. Emma pulled at her hair in anguish. She muttered to herself, "Why did this happen? Tyler has always been kind and gentle." My father, staring at the scathing comments online, grew darker and darker. Finally, in a fit of rage, he shouted, "It must have been Marcus who leaked the video. He's completely ruined the Harrison family's reputation. Unfilial son." He turned and stormed toward the hospital room. Just as he reached the door, the doctor ran out, looking like he had seen a ghost. He bumped into them and, in a panic, shouted, "Mr. Harrison, Miss Chen, it's bad. Mr. Marcus has passed away." "What did you say?" Jessica's eyes turned bloodshot with a terrifying fury as she grabbed the doctor by the collar, demanding, "Who died? He just woke up." The doctor was near tears as he said, "Mr. Marcus, he's really gone." My mother, who had just caught up, heard the news and nearly collapsed. My father swiftly supported his wife. My mother gripped his hand tightly, her lips as white as paper. She muttered, "Gone." My father's face turned an ashen shade as he snapped, "He's had over 20 years of blood drawn from him. How could he just die so easily?" He turned, his anger flaring, as he shouted at the doctor, "How much did Marcus pay you? How dare you help him lie to his parents? Are you trying to avoid my investigation into this family scandal? Unfilial child." The doctor, trembling after Jessica threw him to the ground, hesitated, unsure what to say. This was a private hospital owned by the Harrison family, and there were some things he wasn't supposed to question. He said, "Mr. Marcus had lost too much blood, his body couldn't withstand it." His expression, too genuine to be fake, made Jessica's blood run cold. She could no longer bring herself to enter the room, her rage boiling over as she raised her hand to slap the doctor. She yelled, "Don't you dare curse him, he won't die." The scene descended into chaos. My father struggled to support his limp wife as he stormed into the room, throwing off the white cloth that covered my body. He yelled, "Marcus, enough of this, get up." But his anger froze on his face, replaced by shock and fear. My mother, submerged in an overwhelming wave of terror and regret, couldn't breathe. The air around her felt suffocating, and though her mouth opened, she couldn't draw in a breath. The anxiety that had plagued her for so long turned to physical pain. Her mind was filled with the faint, heartbreaking whispers of "Mom" from Marcus. How much pain must he have been in? Finally, my mother cried out in anguish, "Marcus!" Jessica, who had been outside the room, heard the heartbreaking cry. Her face, already flushed with rage, turned pale as paper. The hand she had raised in anger seemed frozen in mid-air. She didn't know how she ended up inside the room. By the time she entered, my father was desperately trying to lift his wife, but she had no strength left in her legs. She couldn't stand. In the end, she collapsed over my cold body. Tears the size of raindrops fell from her eyes, landing on my lips. She trembled as she stroked my stiff face, unable to believe that "Mom" was the last word I had spoken. Her voice was hoarse. "Mom just wanted you to save Tyler. Why did you have to leave? Marcus, wake up." She pressed her cheek against my forehead, trying to warm me, but the coldness sent a tremor through her body. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I'll never scold you again. Please don't scar your mother, Marcus." She had sworn to give her son the best of everything in life, but somewhere along the way, she had come to feel that her son didn't understand, that he wasn't as considerate as the adopted son, and she had withheld even the smallest affection. Even in the last days when Marcus was awake, she had only given him endless scolding, and now her son was dead. The unbearable memories became sharp shards, tearing through her body, dragging her down into a pit of guilt. She remembered how Marcus had been when he was born, small, soft, quietly lying in her arms, filling her heart with joy and love. She had promised to protect him. But now he had gone ahead of her. She had been the one to insert that deadly needle into his veins. Choking on her words, she whispered, "What have I done to you, Marcus?" Jessica stared blankly at the cold body on the bed. In the midst of her heart-wrenching cries, her knees crashed to the floor, her heart feeling like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense that she wished she could die right then and there. "Marcus?" Jessica crawled toward the bed, but the distance seemed insurmountable. She reached out to touch him, but only her fingers met the ice-cold tips of his. This was not the warmth of a living person. Grief obliterated her completely. She sobbed, "You're just joking with me, right, Marcus? How could you leave me? Without you, I'll die, Marcus. We were about to get married." At the door of the room, Emma had finally prepared herself to apologize to her brother and ask him why he had leaked the video. She even thought of having him admit at the press conference that it was all a prank. But the scene before her left her stunned, her head spinning. Her brother had died. Emma, dazed, walked to the bedside, but before she could even see her brother's face, Jessica, like a frenzied beast, jumped up and grabbed her. She yelled, "It's your fault he died." Jessica slapped Emma's face repeatedly, accusing her, "You drained Marcus's blood." Emma, her teeth knocked out by the blows, glared at Jessica. Her eyes were bloodshot, her pain and regret turning into overwhelming hatred. She shouted, "You killed my brother. If it weren't for your affair with Tyler, my brother wouldn't have died. You shameless troublemaker. You're the one who drove the brothers apart." "Shut up." Jessica lost all reason. They struggled fiercely, both determined to harm the other. It wasn't until Tyler's attending physician arrived to break up the fight that they stopped. He looked at the bruised and battered women and instinctively swallowed. The doctor said, "Tyler still needs more blood." 3 months later, I opened my eyes in the luxurious bedroom of the Blackwell estate. Sunlight streamed through silk curtains, illuminating oil paintings worth millions. The body I inhabited belonged to David Blackwell, heir to the Blackwell Empire, who had died in his sleep from a rare heart condition. The system had kept its promise. I was no longer Marcus Harrison, the family disappointment and eternal blood donor. I was David Blackwell, beloved son of Charles and Margaret Blackwell, brother to Isabella, and heir to a fortune that dwarfed the Harrison family's wealth. "David, darling, are you awake?" Margaret Blackwell entered with a breakfast tray, her face radiant with maternal love. She had been told her son had recovered from a minor illness, nothing more. The difference was staggering. Where Linda Harrison had greeted my awakening with demands and scolding, Margaret showered me with gentle concern. Where the Harrison family had given Tyler my possessions, the Blackwells had preserved every childhood memory, every achievement, every sign of their love for their son. "Good morning, Mother," I said, and her eyes filled with tears of joy. "Oh, David, you sound so mature. The doctor said your illness might have changed you, made you more thoughtful. I'm just grateful you're here with us." For the first time in my life, I felt unconditional love. 6 months after my rebirth as David Blackwell, I attended the annual charity gala hosted by the city's elite. The Blackwell name commanded respect that the Harrison family could never have imagined. Business leaders, politicians, and celebrities all sought my attention, not because they needed something from me, but because association with the Blackwell Empire was an honor. I had spent those months mastering David's artistic talents, creating paintings that critics called revolutionary. The art world hailed me as a prodigy who had overcome a childhood illness to emerge as a visionary. My work sold for millions, not because I needed the money, but because I had something to say about suffering, redemption, and the triumph of the human spirit. Standing in the ballroom, surrounded by admirers, I felt a familiar presence. Across the room, a woman with striking features and intelligent eyes was watching me with curious intensity. Victoria Blackwell, no relation despite the name, was the daughter of a tech mogul and known for her sharp business acumen and mysterious past. Something about her seemed familiar, though I was certain we had never met. The system had mentioned that souls sometimes found each other across lifetimes, drawn by connections deeper than memory. David Blackwell, she said, approaching with a champagne flute in her hand. Your latest exhibition was extraordinary. The painting titled, Chains of Gold. It spoke to me in ways I can't explain. That painting depicted a man trapped by golden chains, representing how wealth and family obligations could become prisons when used to manipulate and control. Only someone who had experienced similar pain would understand its deeper meaning. Thank you, Victoria. I painted it from personal experience, though not my own, if that makes sense. Her eyes widened slightly. It makes perfect sense. Sometimes we carry the memories of lives we've never lived, pain we've never experienced, love we've never known we lost. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Security guards were struggling with a disheveled woman who was screaming my name, or rather, the name I used to bear. Marcus, Marcus, I know it's you. Please don't leave me again. Jessica Chen had somehow gained entry to the gala. Her once pristine appearance was gone, replaced by the hollow-eyed look of someone consumed by obsession and guilt. The Chen family business had collapsed after the scandal surrounding Tyler's imprisonment, and rumors suggested Jessica had been in and out of psychiatric facilities. Who is that woman? Victoria asked, moving protectively closer to me. Someone from a past life, I replied, watching as security prepared to escort Jessica away. But Jessica broke free one final time, her wild eyes locking onto mine across the crowded ballroom. I know what I did. I know I killed you. But you came back, didn't you? You came back because you still love me. The ballroom fell silent. Cameras flashed as society reporters captured what would become tomorrow's scandalous headlines. But I felt nothing except pity for the broken woman who had once meant everything to me. Ma'am, I said in David's cultured voice, I believe you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm David Blackwell. Perhaps you need medical attention. Jessica's face crumpled. The final thread of hope that had kept her functioning snapped. As security finally dragged her away, she screamed, I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm so sorry. Victoria slipped her hand into mine, her touch warm and comforting. Are you all right? I am now, I replied, and meant it. Later that evening, Victoria and I walked through the Blackwell Estate's gardens, discussing art, philosophy, and the strange connections that bind souls to ether. She told me about dreams she'd been having since childhood, dreams of loving someone she could never quite remember upon waking. I've been searching for someone my entire life, she confessed as we sat beside the fountain my new parents had installed for David's 18th birthday. Someone I lost in ways I can't explain. When I saw your paintings, especially the one titled 3,000 Miles, I felt like I was looking at my own heart. That painting depicted a soul's journey through countless worlds, always searching, always loving, always hoping for reunion. I had painted it thinking of my long journey through the system's missions, but perhaps it meant something more. Victoria, I said, taking her hands in mine, what if I told you that some loves transcend single lifetimes? That some souls are bound together across multiple existences, and that finding each other again is not chance, but destiny? Tears filled her beautiful eyes. I'd say that I've been waiting 3,000 lifetimes to hear you say that. In that moment, I understood. Victoria was the soul who had loved me in every world I'd visited, the constant presence I'd been too focused on Jessica to notice. The system hadn't just given me a new body and a new family, it had finally brought me to the love I'd been too blind to see. We married 6 months later in a ceremony that made international headlines. Not because of the wealth or the celebrity guests, but because everyone present could feel the profound connection between us. Margaret Blackwell wept tears of joy, saying she'd never seen her son so completely happy. Charles Blackwell walked me down the aisle, whispering, "Your mother and I always worried that you were too pure-hearted for this world, that someone would take advantage of your kindness. But Victoria, she sees your worth. She'll protect your heart the way we've tried to protect everything else." Isabella served as Victoria's maid of honor, having become not just my sister, but Victoria's closest friend. And "You two are like something out of a fairy tale," she told us during the reception. "The way you look at each other. It's like you've been waiting your whole lives for this moment." If only she knew how accurate that was. As for the Harrison family and those who had betrayed Marcus Harrison, the system had ensured they faced consequences befitting their actions. Tyler remained in prison, serving a life sentence for murder. The evidence against him had been overwhelming, and his confession had eliminated any chance of appeal. His fellow inmates had learned about his crime, killing his adopted brother for money and a woman, and prison justice had been swift and brutal. Robert Harrison's business empire crumbled when evidence emerged of the decades-long fraud he'd perpetrated, using Marcus's trust fund to cover Tyler's medical expenses while claiming insurance payouts for fake treatments. He died of a stroke while being interrogated by federal investigators. Linda Harrison never recovered from the guilt of being her son's killer. She donated the family's remaining assets to a charity for abused children and entered a convent, spending her remaining years in silent penance. The once proud socialite became a broken woman who spoke only to confess her sins. Emma Harrison lost everything: her inheritance, her social standing, and the child she'd carried for Tyler. The miscarriage occurred the same day she learned the full extent of Tyler's manipulations. She lived alone in a small apartment, working as a grocery store clerk, shunned by the society that had once embraced her. Jessica's fate was perhaps the most poetic. Unable to accept Marcus's death or David's rejection, she fell into a catatonic state. But her unconscious mind, influenced by the same supernatural forces that had granted Marcus his second chance, trapped her in an endless cycle of dreams. In each dream, she lived a different life where she was the one betrayed, the one abandoned, the one who died unloved and unmourned. She experienced every cruelty she had inflicted on Marcus, felt every moment of pain she had caused, understood every sacrifice she had selfishly accepted. The doctors said she might never wake up. I knew she would remain trapped in those dreams until she truly understood the magnitude of what she had destroyed. 5 years later, Victoria and I stood in our private art gallery, surrounded by paintings that told the story of redemption, love, and the triumph of the human spirit over cruelty and betrayal. Our twin children, a boy and a girl, played at our feet while Margaret and Charles Blackwell looked on with adoration. "Do you ever think about your past life?" Victoria asked, her hand resting on her stomach where our third child was growing. "Only to be grateful it led me here," I replied, pulling her close. "Marcus Harrison had to die so that David Blackwell could live and love properly. And I had to wait 3,000 lifetimes to find my way to you," she whispered against my lips. In the distance, thunder rumbled, but inside our gallery, surrounded by love and genuine happiness, the storm couldn't touch us. I had learned the most important lesson of all: sometimes you have to lose everything to gain what truly matters. The system had long since completed its mission and departed, but not before leaving me with a final message. "Well done, host. You've learned that the greatest revenge is not destruction, but building something so beautiful that your enemies can only watch from the shadows, knowing they'll never touch it." As I kissed my wife and held my children, I understood that Marcus Harrison's suffering had not been in vain. It had taught me to recognize genuine love when I found it, to value those who valued me, and to never again mistake cruelty for care, or manipulation for affection. The broken boy who had died unloved in that hospital room had been reborn as a man surrounded by unconditional love, and in that rebirth, I had found not just happiness, but peace. The story of Marcus Harrison was over. The story of David Blackwell, beloved husband, father, and artist, was just beginning. And somewhere in the city, in a sterile hospital room, Jessica Chen slept on, trapped in dreams where she finally understood what she had lost, what she had destroyed, and what she could never, ever reclaim. Justice, I had learned, wasn't always about punishment. Sometimes it was simply about letting people live with the consequences of their choices while you built something beautiful with someone who truly deserved your love.